Stay with us. The transmission is straight ahead. Last time I checked, more than $8 billion had been paid out since 1983 to the secret vaccine damage fund by a secret federal court whose job it is to cover up the deaths, the brain damage, the paralyzations that have happened by the hundreds of thousands. Quite frankly, the millions that have been brain damaged. We're going to be breaking that down today because there's another secret fund we just learned about in Congress to pay off the sexual harassment and sexual assault of women and, yes, men and, yes, underage pages that are raped on the desk. That's all coming up today and more. But first, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get to a powerful report by Paul Joseph Watson dealing with a new type of superhero that we're dealing with. And, of course, that's Soy Boy. Now, a lot of these folks that have been damaged by this and the other estrogen mimickers that are in our environment like their enslavement. So we found the only way to reach out to them is kind of making a sick joke about it. But it's hurting all of us, and it's hyper-feminizing women and accelerating breast cancer and other problems in the womb as well. So I want to get to this powerful report, and then we'll get into the science behind it after that, tie it into vaccines, and so much more, because this is a directed agenda. It's an admitted social engineering agenda to break up the family, to discredit men, to emasculate men, and more. Here's Paul Joseph Watson's report.
Is soy food consumption turning men into and making them more likely to adopt left-wing beliefs? You've probably seen the BuzzFeed Try Guys video where they measure their testosterone and it's literally half or less the normal level for a man. Their testosterone is so low, it's below the average for an 85 to 100-year-old man.
We're all super freaking hot.
Imagine my shock.
Stop it right now.
And as we know, the only men who seriously watch BuzzFeed are tofu-eating, male feminist virtue signaling, beta-orbiter soy boys, which led me to this, one of the funniest things on Twitter ever. This guy's compiled a huge list of the most virulently insufferable far leftists on Twitter. And guess what? They all consume soy products in copious quantities. Soy boys. Remember Will Wheaton, the twat who insulted Christians immediately after the Texas church massacre of Christians. He's a soy boy. The Pez-neck New York Antifa professor who constantly tweets about wanting cops to be killed. He's a soy boy. Casey Newton, the Verge editor who said he'd walk through fire for Hillary Clinton. He's a soy boy. Arthur Chu, the Jeopardy winner who's such a good feminist, he wants to wipe out all men and admits he can't satisfy his wife. He's a soy boy. He's such a soy boy, he thinks Starbucks charging extra for soy milk is racist. This guy who said he was suicidal because he's ethnically white. He's a soy boy. This Tumblr male feminist who brags about how woke he is. He's a soy boy. This dude who's such an ardent feminist he took his wife's last name. He's a soy boy. This idiot who thinks saying all lives matter is racist and hates his own family because they're conservative. He's a soy boy. This communist who thinks anyone who disparages soy is a fascist. He's a soy boy. Jesse Cox, the comedian who said he'd rather die than see America stop taking in refugees. He'd be a soy boy. And that's the thing. There seems to be an even closer correlation between male feminist virtue signalers who defend Muslim refugees and their soy fetish, despite the fact that the mass importation of people from a society that literally produced something called the rape game is putting more women at risk than ever before. Yeah, not very feminist, that, is it?
Say it loud, say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Delicious tofu dog.
Soy boy.
If the US cared about civilians in Syria, maybe it shouldn't have stopped accepting them as refugees. When your local Thai food spot calls you back to make sure you only want 2 orders of tofu drunken noodle because you usually order 3.
Soy boy.
If you're LGBT and support Trump's Muslim and refugee bans, you're putting many of our brothers and sisters at risk. And you, soy isn't healthy. Okay, but I'm literally using it as a dairy substitute, so what's your point?
Soy boy.
Non-refugee men are far more likely to be rapists statically. Stop being a xenophobe.
This guy posted a picture of his soy-filled fridge, then said if his own son turned into a woman because of eating too much soy, he wouldn't see it as a negative. Soy boy. I wonder if the Norwegian guy who felt guilty about the Muslim migrant who raped him being deported is also a soy boy. Bet he is. What is it about soy that turns men into such spineless wimps?
I mean, this guy is such a total It's stunning.
Soybeans contain high amounts of phytoestrogens, organic compounds that mimic the female hormone estrogen in the human body. This reduces testosterone and lowers male sperm count. Men who eat half a serving of soy a day have 34 million fewer sperm per millimeter than those who don't. Men with low testosterone have impaired sexual functioning. They lose their libido. Men with high estrogen take on feminine traits. They find it harder to handle stress.
I'm triggered.
They become less assertive. They become low energy. Their voices get higher, their genitals shrink, they lose muscle tone, and they lose hair.
The fact that they use soy therapy for women that are post-menopause, meaning that their femininity has sort of dropped, right? They don't have as much estrogen. They use soy to produce more womanly hormones for those types of women is a clear indicator to me that I don't want to take that because I don't want to be more womanly.
Men with high testosterone handle dramatic situations better. They don't get scared by loud noises. Low testosterone is also linked with mood swings and depression. It's a constant source of interest to me how my most obsessive and vehement haters on the left always relentlessly complain about how maniacally depressed they are. Studies have repeatedly shown how liberals are more unhappy than conservatives. Every year since 1972, when Pew began its study, significantly more Republicans have reported themselves to be very happy compared to Democrats. Soy lowers testosterone, and low testosterone causes depression. Obviously, it's not the only factor, but consider this. In 1992, soy food sales in the US stood at $300 million a year. They now stand at over $4 billion a year. This has coincided with a substantial drop in men's testosterone levels in the US since the 80s.
According to Dr. Thomas Travison and his colleagues behind one such study, the average levels of the male hormone are dropping by about 1% per year. This means that a 40-year-old man in 2017 would have testosterone levels about 20% lower than a 40-year-old in 1997.
Surgeons are also conducting an all-time record number of operations to reduce man boobs. Could soy be one of the causes of this surge in men growing Babylons? And I'm not talking about obesity. We're talking about otherwise healthy and lean boys and young men suffering from gynecomastia, otherwise known as tits. According to Dr. Kayla T. Daniel, the cause is environmental estrogens, including, you guessed it, soy.
All of those soybeans contain phytoestrogens, that's plant estrogens, and they are a form of estrogenizing influence on the body. They create hormonal havoc. They create endocrine disruption. And who's most at risk? Well, boys who were on soy infant formula when they were babies, boys who grew up and their brains and bodies developed on soy milk and other phytoestrogenic foods, and young men and older men who get health conscious and start drinking a lot of soy milk and eating soy shakes and soy energy bars. Moods can be one of the side effects.
After retired U.S. Army intelligence officer James Price was diagnosed with gynecomastia, he was found to have estrogen levels in his bloodstream 8 times the normal limit for men. Take a rough guess at what Price's favourite drink was. Soy milk. Parents are switching their infants over to soy baby formula in droves. 25% of babies in America are now fed soy infant formula. A baby exclusively fed soy formula receives the estrogenic equivalent of at least 5 birth control pills per day. So that suggests that rather than people with already pre-existing left-wing beliefs being attracted to vegan-style tofu soy diets, we're actually creating an army of soy boys from birth. What a terrifying thought. And let's be clear, I'm not talking about gay people. I don't think soy changes sexuality. I'm talking about effeminate acting straight guys. Let's call them try guys. When it comes to men actually behaving and acting like men, soy is the silent killer. We're losing an entire generation of young men to soy men. If you don't want to develop a bunch of retarded beliefs about how inviting in millions of rapey migrants is a great idea, about how anyone to the right of Michael Moore is literally Hitler, about how fantastic communism is, or about how being a white man is shameful and wrong, while literally growing and seeing your penis shrink at the same time, when it comes to soy, just say no.
There was a group of 7 families hired by the British Crown in 1855 to do a genetic breed line test to try to discover why the royal family was having so many genetic problems. They're also seeking to discover the makeup of the human DNA. They were postulating that they could discover what we were made of, and that they would also develop systems of social control over the population. A grandson of that breeding program, Aldous Huxley, wrote A Brave New World in 1932. Now, there's a reason that he put the book out. He later said in 1961 in a speech at Berkeley and in a book titled Brave New World Revisited that they were going to put chemicals in the food and water to make men basically feminine and then to hype women up into a hyper-feminine state. But that was only phase one. They would then completely remove humans having intercourse, and humans would be created in the Petri dish. We're now here. So you have to understand, this is a plan. You read something written in 1932, that was close to 100 years of advanced research knowledge. They invented biometrics, everything. His brother went on to run the United Nations World Government Program for UNESCO that is then adopted by all the major nation states. The reason I point that out is when we talk about, is soy making us feminine? Is soy driving down sperm counts? Well, it's weaponized soy. They grind up the core of the soy and put it in soy milk, not just the outside of the soy. So yes, it has caused a lot of genetic things in Asian men over generations. I'm not going to go into all the genetic things. Everybody knows what's happened. And now it's being done on a hyper level with the new types of soy where they don't get rid of the part of the plant that's even higher in estrogen. And this is a estrogen drug that men are on. So you wonder why they're so depressed, freaking out, hating everyone, trying to be feminine. They are taking weapons-grade levels. Now, women that take this, it grows super fast cancers in the ovaries, super fast cancers in the uterus, super fast cancers in the breast tissue. It's a admitted fact. Glyphosate does it as well. And you sit here and warn people, and the soy makers push the Google results and others where you've got all their debunking at the top that's total lies. It is an absolute fact that soy alone is a main contributor. And then you've got the estrogen mimickers they use in printer ink, all the major printer inks. It's just overwhelming. It's not debatable. Just like vaccines cause what they say they're stopping most of the time, don't protect you. I've got a big stack of news and government reports right from it. They put out puff pieces for Google at the top that are all total lies. But it's a fact, and I've got all the statistics, the numbers from the government, from the CDC internally in 2000, saying we've got to stop this. It's caused millions of people to be brain damaged. We've paid out billions of dollars secretly, just like they pay out secretly for the sexual harassment. This is the big issue. So Paul Joseph Watson has a very, very important report. It's titled Soy Boy, to try to reach out to these people and show them why they're so depressed, why they're so unhealthy, and why they're so crazy, hyper-feminine, hysterical, from the Greek word, or you can go back to Latin, I guess after that, dealing with the uterus, or a hysterectomy. You cut out the hysteria. The point is that that's what's happening with these people. And it's a scientific plan, and the article's on newswars.com about the soy boy phenomenon, but it's a very, very serious issue. Men from just 20 years ago already have a massive reduction in the testosterone. If you go back 40 years, it's even more intense. Men have less than half the testosterone they did. This is a program in the West. As soon as other countries become westernized, the same thing happens. Let me show you some photos of Clint Eastwood, not a big steroid head, not a hyper-masculine guy, but a guy who's almost 90 years old and who exercises and takes care of himself. I mean, there he is back in the 50s, okay? Clint Eastwood, classical masculine traits, okay? Longevity, strong, productive, honorable, hardworking guy, quit his big career to be in the Korean War, even though he was already a star, came back after that. A great patriot. Let's look at the modern male. Let's put him on screen. I'll describe it for radio listeners. Wearing a shirt that says, white males are terrorists, white men are terrorists, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is a male. That is not a female. The person's been contacted. It's been identified. So that is a man who absolutely then sees what's left of old masculinity, and because they don't have it, they hate it. This is classical projection, ladies and gentlemen. So there you go. And then people revel in being unhealthy, revel in being weak, revel in being mentally ill because they're addicted to the poison. A heroin head will make excuses about why they're on heroin. An alcoholic will do the same thing. These people are addicted to super weaponized estrogen. And they are whacked out of their brains, and they don't know how to get out of it, and they don't know why they have the highest suicide rates, or why they're so depressed, or why things are so horrible. Because this is what has been done to them by design. And that's the bottom line. The globalists admit that they social engineer worldwide. They admit they have programs to break up the family and to target men. It's all declassified. They admit they promote ugly art. They promote the end of the family to control you. Go read Brave New World. So get the video, Soy Boy, out to everybody. But also, this is a live radio/television show. But later today, when we post this to Facebook, we post this to Twitter, we're live streaming right now. Get it. Give it to young people in your family. Give it to your wife, your husband. Show them the footage. Show them the articles. Show them the documents. Show them the information. And also warn them about vaccines. One of my friends, his wife, sneaks off with their baby and gets them vaccines. Going to give them the flu shot at 6 months old. And she says, I don't care if it hurts them because it'll protect them from something else. But the statistics are all there. It doesn't. And we're going to go over some of those today. But you have to hammer people with this, and you have to explain to them that just a year ago, research, Dr. Blaylock, the science, the CDC reports that came out, those were the top of Google and Bing. They're all buried now. You have to know the exact headline or exact study to find it. And we're going to be putting together special reports now just to put this knowledge out of the CDC's own head in 2000. The minutes got leaked in 2005. ABC News reported on it, saying we've got 2 million people seriously brain damaged in the last decade, our numbers. He said we've got hundreds of thousands that have died from MMR and other vaccines causing autoimmune response to the brain. You don't think they don't know? He goes, we're going to have a revolt on our hands if this goes public, but we've got to stop. We got to take the thimerosal out. But that's what the scientist told the director. It's not the thimerosal. That's part of it. The whole thing causes an autoimmune response. Let me tell you this. A baby, by the time it's 6 months, has had about 50 shots. Some of them have 3 or 4 things in each shot. Would you let 50 bees sting your baby? No, chances are they'd have an autoimmune response, swelling of the brain, swelling of other things, and then would possibly die. I mean, when you go get allergy shots just of, elm or whatever, they make you have an EpiPen to do it. I've done it, but why not with vaccines? Why no EpiPen there? Because they don't want you to know it's an autoimmune response. It can kill you. There are new documents out released by the Pentagon and the CDC telling us exactly what top virologists, endocrinologists, brain surgeons, epidemiologists have told us here on this broadcast since they started giving U.S. troops the anthrax vaccine back during the first Gulf War and through it. They've had 5 rounds of it in 5 different years, spanned out from 1990 through just about, 4 years ago. They suspended giving the shots because there were so many deaths, and they had entire wings of medical personnel, including doctors, leave because they would see up to 20% of the servicemen and women, including special forces people, they weren't acting, in bed for days, weeks, months, or dying. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can look that up for yourself, but it's all come out. But listen, I had top scientists on. You know they've now found anthrax that they believe is 1 million years old under the permafrost that shouldn't be there. They're finding it inside rocks in coal mines. It is plant spore bacteria, basically. Bacteria that go to the plant family. And the spores, they believe, might be how life started, if you don't believe in God, or God did it that way, floating on the solar winds. The elite are obsessed with it. They're also obsessed with something called gene lines, the Lazarus gene, immortal cell lines. They've found only a few hundred people that they've told us about who have cells that you can put in a petri dish and walk away, and it has no food, no oxygen, no nothing, sealed, and the cell is alive in 20 years. Look up immortal cell lines. Now, they've also found that these are cancers. Fast-acting cancers, when you get an immortal cell, it starts replicating and it kills you. This is not movies. This is not fiction. This is the equivalent of a zombie. That's why they call it the Lazarus gene or the Lazarus cell line. Now, they did this to the troops to give them anthrax and then to have blood draws on individuals later to see if they created a mutagenic new system within the body, and the troops were used in mass experiments. And that's all coming out. They knew it was deadly. They knew it didn't protect them, just like shooting black people up, telling them it's vaccines, and they were giving them live syphilis by the thousands and then letting them spread it to hundreds of thousands. And next time your wife, because particularly women that get bullied by the media and the doctors, next time your wife's looking at you and she tells you, oh, I'm going to give the baby all these shots, you can pull up all the reports where it doesn't protect them. It actually gives them the flu a lot of times, gives them the hepatitis, gives them the measles, mumps, rubella. The outbreaks are bigger in vaccinated groups. That's where the outbreaks are coming from. I have stacks of news here today. The inserts say on vaccines may cause miscarriage. Now there's all these studies out saying it's causing miscarriages. And they're in the news going, gee, could these studies be true? Wow, this is amazing. Who would have ever thought? If a woman gets stung by one bee, she doesn't usually have. And I go to this because the average person can get this when you're trying to wake them up. When you get stung the first time by a bee, you don't usually have an autoimmune response. You don't usually have an allergy. You don't usually have your throat swell up. But the second time, third time, fourth, that's when you tend to get the allergy. Or when a whole bunch sting you. People used to be so afraid of bees when I was growing up. I'm like, I've been stung many times. You know, big deal, be tough. They go, no, I'm allergic. And I saw some kid at the pool swell up, almost died. They had to put him in an ambulance, and it was terrible. Then I got stung by a swarm of bees once when I was plowing a field at my parents' place. I was plowing up an area my mom wanted to put a garden into, in between some trees, a little area of trees on their 4 acres here in town. Got stung probably 15 times. Whole swarm, just like a movie. Chased me, stung me, chased me in the house. And just in the second I opened the door, 5 or 6 got in, were in the house. But it was like a big swarm, just like in the cartoons, big black swarm around me. Pulling stingers out. I'm like, whoa. All of a sudden, throat starts swelling up. All of a sudden, can't breathe. I was like 18. Go into my parents' medicine cabinet. I know to take liquid Benadryl. It's there. Guzzle it. Put baking soda to denature it. Pulling stingers out. Get in a cold shower. Start getting dizzy. Call my dad. He says, I'll be there in 5 minutes. His dental office is like 5 minutes away. He gets there. By then, it was already going down. And I'm laid out naked on the kitchen floor. All swole up, but it was starting to go down. When you give a baby vaccines, it's the same thing in the studies. They're having autoimmune responses. They start having convulsions. They get blood on the brain. The breathing areas close. And now if you're smart, because they train the doctors, we've played the clips on air at these big consortium meetings they have. They just had one a few months ago in Houston, where one of the lead people said, it's white people that aren't taking vaccines. I just want to get rid of. We need to kill all the white people. Remember that clip? Sounded insane. Don't believe me? Just type it in. Vaccine doctor says we should kill all the white people. You'll get the video. They had hundreds of doctors down there, and they talked for hours. How do we force the public to take this stuff? How do we lie to them? How do we? Well, don't lie. Just tell them. It's better your child have convulsions than ever get the flu. So now they're having to admit, when you get a smart one, but see, that's what they're telling you. Did you know, you can look it up for yourself, the higher educated somebody is, the less vaccines they take. The higher educated, and you know who doesn't take them? The doctors and the medical people. That's why they're having to fire them all over the U.S., because they they see the preemies that they give the vaccines to die. They have to put them on respirators. They get the respirators ready when the bioethics board says, well, you got 20 preemies in there unvaccinated. Until about 6 years ago, you'd never do that. You said, it's a policy, do it. Just to see what they can get away with. And they get the respirators ready, and a lot of times, you lose the baby. We've had nurses on about it. It's been in the news. Oh, that's a lot bigger than sexual harassment, isn't it? But it's hidden in plain view against those of us that are understand and are informed. The media lies and says, oh, you just don't believe in science. It's like Black Lives Matter, Science Matters. These signs are up all over the country. Billboards, people's yards. Black Lives Matter and science is real. It's like I say, oh, yeah, you don't believe in learned immunity, huh? Don't know anything about white blood cells, do you, Alex? Well, it's not just white blood cells, it's T lymphocytes, and I happen to know all about it, yes, and I've literally lived studying this for decades. My mother was a triathlete when she was in her 40s, was winning gold and silver medals at the major regional and national level. She was beating former Olympic athletes. University of Texas Masters told them, take flu shots. She almost died. Other members of her team got really sick, and she never made it back to that level again. I mean, I can read the science, but I can also see my uncle took the tetanus shot. Whole arm blew up. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks, almost died. I was 5 years old when that happened. He worked on a ranch, stepped on a nail. They said, get another tetanus shot. Almost killed my uncle. That's a real person. I got people sitting down here that went to Vietnam a few months ago. They told them to get all these shots, almost killed her. And they told her, you can't ever take a vaccine again because you have you have like a bee sting. The next time it could kill you. I know all about learned immunity. I went and got the shots and stuff to, stop allergies, and it helped because it was just a little bit of what was really in the environment. But I've got an EpiPen when I did it. They're not telling you what it can do to you until it's too late. Then they told her, you can't ever take a shot again. It'll probably kill you. But when your baby has a convulsion, they say, bring him right back in and get more. Hell, stick your baby in a beehive. Cram them in there. It's good for them. People ask why I get really frustrated and angry sometimes. There is a admitted, declassified, worldwide eugenics program working with corporations and governments to test deadly chemicals and biologicals on the public to control the population, but at the same time use us as guinea pigs in lethal testing to develop super science level drugs and treatments. And of course, an example I harp on a lot is you've got all these animal rights laws in place, and you've got all these human rights laws in place, but they just basically ignore the human rights stuff. But then you've got the human-animal chimeras by the thousands that have been gestating on labs and being born for 35 years, and they just now told us about it last year. Of course, I told you about it 22 years ago, but it's now public. And they have no rights. And I've talked to people that have been involved in the labs, and they won't get into any details. They just say it is horrifying beyond anything you've ever imagined. So if you think pedophilia and Satanism and all this sexual harassment stuff is even the bottom of the rat hole, mutating the whole planet, creating horrible genetic abominations, is the finger painting of the demon elite that runs this planet. It's like the $50 million catch-up on canvas that went. That's meant to debase art. That's meant to laugh by these big brokerage firms when they, pay $100 million for a bucket of horse manure. It's a sick joke that everybody's starving and they're going to fill their house with buckets of horse manure. It's saying, you're crap. I'm going to spend money on this ugly thing. It's blasphemy. It's inversion. It's like killing a baby. Because I'm selfish and I want to. I'm going to do it. And then that's all declassified. They admit that they started funding this in the 50s to make ugly art, force-fed to short-circuit people's minds. And then play a game with you and say, oh, the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You understand? That's not my opinion. It's declassified. Modern architecture. Ugliness. All of it. I'm not saying all modern architecture is ugly. Some of the Japanese style is very beautiful, but it's not really modern. It's simplistic. Different term. But the big block houses, there it is, independent newspaper, modern art is a CIA weapon. See, because you have to understand, we're here to talk about the engineering. They've got blueprints, they've got owner's manuals for us. They talk about what they're doing. They're a bunch of inbred, super rich people that are almost all into Satanism. I know folks that know the top Hollywood people, the top Rockefellers, the top DuPonts. I know 2 different people that know the DuPont family. And separately, before I ever talked about it on air, they told me most of the men are trans. That's the elite thing. And then they're also devil worshipers. And it's just like, whoa. And the headline will be, Jones says trans people are devil worshipers. No, I'm saying what I was told. That's what the whole thing is. It's this hermaphroditic thing. It's like take over the human. Don't be male. Don't be female. Rebel against creation. Rebel against procreation. And their sperm counts are down 90+%. The families are falling apart. It is a war on life. The genetic engineering, the Terminator seeds that don't produce new seeds, all of it is about total corporate domination of the life force, of procreation, and corporate scientific control where babies are born out of plastic bags that aren't even humans. They're just engineered. And that's full control for the ruling classes that have always wanted that. And then BuzzFeed celebrates, we have low testosterone, we're weird nerds, our moms all gave us soy. And a lot of these moms are with the program. This is a sacrifice of their son, but not on an altar, but for their life, turning them into a pet. It's safer that way, isn't it, to have your son be your pet? And you wonder, they're black, they're white, they're Hispanic. Look at the BuzzFeed video. They all look the same. They all look like their souls were sucked. And they all act like 4-year-olds. They got hit. And they got hit hard. And they're gone. You have to understand, and they want you to be gone too. They know it. I go back to Omega Man and that allegory where his blood's got the antidote. It's like The Last Man on Earth remade, and they had I Am Legend. It was a 3rd remake, not any good. But you got the dumb zombies, you got the upper caste zombies, the undead. And he's got the cure, and they go, dude, we don't want it, and we're going to kill you, okay? You understand? You're not going to give us the cure. We don't want the cure. We don't like you. Do you understand? And it's like arrested development, and it's a rebellion against God, against nature, against femininity, against masculinity. And they say, see, because they don't have that. So what they have is a petulant kind of 13, 14-year-old spoiled rotten thing where they go out and wear onesies now. Remember, that's the new fashion? And I've seen men all over Austin, the trendy, wearing onesies. What do they call them? They have a name for them. Male onesies. And they revel. Look, I'm a joke. Look, I've been destroyed. Look, I'm programmed. Look, I'm fighting back. I'm rebelling. But they're not rebelling. They're rebelling against their biology, but the central programming system is what's destroying them. And they'll tell you they're financially not doing well. They're statistically the most depressed. They're committing suicide at the highest levels. They don't care. They just want to take you with them. Listen, I've got the cure. It's right here. It's called reality. It's called the plan. It's called being aware of the engineering. It's called understanding. Choosing your destiny, not having someone else choose it for you. And they say, I don't want that. I'm going to get together in big groups of us, and we're all going to conquer you, and that existentially is how you become powerful, is in mass groups conquering the original biology that you live longer, you're stronger, you're better. It doesn't matter, though. You don't care. If you could conquer that, you see, you're facsimiles of the elites. You are trying to mimic, who are not the elites. They are the elite of evil. They are the elite of corruption. They are just like you. They were given their wealth over and over and over again. They're spoiled. They hate flyover country. They hate men that are bigger and stronger than them. They want to walk around the mall when they go, knowing they're part of the engineering, knowing they're hitting you with vaccines, knowing they're poisoning you. They know it. They write books about it. They brag about it. You don't just think they want to humiliate women like Harvey Weinstein does or be pedophiles, do you? They want to wreck it all, and they're doing it.